Is that a yummy turtle?
Good morning and welcome back to Coworking with Iris. We have a guest this morning who has another special guest with her. Very excited to introduce my friend Rebecca, who I've worked with for I think about 6.5 years now, and has been a co-working pioneer, has done a lot to push the movement forward, and has really done a lot of remarkable work over the years to bring the co-working movement and the office's business center movement together and combine them, and really build bridges between those of us in both sides of that sector. I've admired Rebecca for many years for her ability to pull community together around her and her ability to create businesses and networks within businesses that benefit all of the people involved, and also just her guts and her gusto. So without any other notice, I will bring Rebecca on. And Rebecca, please tell us about your co-working story.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here and talk to you, Iris.
Good morning.
This is Sawyer, my son, and my entree into co-working started in 2009. So, boy, that was a long time ago. That's when I met you and joined the Next Space team as a employee number 4, I think it was, and helped Nextbase grow to 9 locations. And then in January of 2014, left to start Cobo, which is where I'm filming from right now. And Covo is kind of a what's a good way to describe it? We've been called the next generation of co-working. We think of it as kind of a leveling up of all of the great stuff that we figured out in the past and solved some of the issues that we had before, and I'm sure are in the middle of making all sorts of new mistakes because we've pulled together some things that have just never been done before. So we're charting some new territory and trying to keep all the good stuff that we did before on the table, like Sawyer.
So Rebecca, when we first met, you were touring Next Space, where I was working in Santa Cruz with a mutual friend, Gabriel Gasca, and your future business partner, Jamie Capozzi. And you were really looking at co-working spaces because you wanted to start a co-working space that was focused on designers and focused around design.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right, Sawyer? And so I'm curious, did that influence your goals in opening Covo at all?
Actually, no. But we did end up creating a space that is ideally suited to designers. So I'm glad that you put that together because I actually didn't. What we were originally thinking. Here, I'm gonna give Sawyer to his grandma.
Okay. I don't mind, but I appreciate that you need to be able to focus.
We were thinking that my background is in graphic design and marketing, and we were thinking that it would be really good to have a co-working space that was designers and developers and photographers and all of the people that we wanted to collaborate with from a creative standpoint. And then when we met you and Jeremy, and you were talking about how designers are a great asset to the space, but designers also need accountants and PR people and financial advisors, and you can have a creative group and have incredible collaboration come out of it without it being niche in terms of who is permitted to be at the space. And when you guys explained that to us, I was totally sold. It was like, yeah, the more divergent thinking you have, the better, because you never know from what industry we're going to have our next, disruption of a new industry.
Mm-hmm.
Then with Covo, our plan was to have it be industry agnostic, but we met a group called Good Design. Bill Worthen and Kyle Pickett are the two people that are behind that. And their focus was to create a space for architects, engineers, and designers. And we met them. They had a whole audience and no space and had no idea how to actually run a co-working space. We were developing the space but needed members. So we came together and have created. Covo is not only for architects, engineers, and designers, but we have a few components that we've added that make it very user-friendly to that industry in a way that co-working is not really anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. What are those aspects that you've incorporated into your model that make it friendly to that industry, or those industries, I should say?
We have a materials library. That's something that architects and designers really need, with to be able to see all the different swatches and fabrics and textiles and substrates and stones and tiles for projects, as well as under different types of lighting, so they can see how it's all going to fit together. We have two large format plotters.
Mm-hmm.
So you can print your blueprints and your plans and your permit set. We also have Autodesk has contributed AutoCAD, which is the kind of leading platform for architects, and we have training stations set up for CAD training.
Wow, what wonderful resources to offer to that industry, especially not being a makerspace, because I could see that being offered in a makerspace, but not in a space that's geared more towards, laptops and co-working and big monitors and designers. And are these resources available to anybody to come use, or do you need to be a member of Covo in order to use them?
You need to be a member, but we are working on kind of if you only need, plotter printing or something, can we have a level of membership that gives you access to that, but you have your own office? So that's something that we're still figuring out, kind of the logistics. But we do think we'll be able to be a resource so that you can come, get your printing done, have a coffee, have a glass of wine, meet with somebody, kind of all at the same time.
I love that. So I just kind of stepping back to Sawyer. You had Sawyer in March. You launched Covo in July. How is that? How's that going? Are you getting any sleep? What's it like to be, a mom and a mom of a brand new co-working space?
It's mixed. I would say until we actually launched the bar, I did a great job of balancing and being a mom and launching the new company, and it was crazy, but I got enough sleep and was able to feel like I was able to really deliver on both Sawyer and the Cobo babies. The past few weeks, though, have been really tough. We've been a little bit understaffed, so I've also been taking bar shifts, and that has just thrown everything off. I have no idea how to balance that.
Yeah.
We have the nanny till 4, and Jason's second in command gave notice, so Kevin's not with us anymore, and Jason needs a lot more time at FixLift. I need to be at Covo till 9:30 or 10. So that's just been, and we can't really have Sawyer here because he's a little bit too loud and boisterous if he doesn't have somebody that's like really watching over him
Mm-hmm.
as like a dedicated caregiver. So that's been crazy, and I don't feel like I'm balancing well.
I'm curious. I've found, my kids are a fair amount older. I have a 16-year-old, and I found as a parent and a working parent that I was able to balance things, relatively speaking, when I worked for somebody else. But this year, I've launched my own business and kind of really jumped into it head first since the spring. And I actually, when I left Nextspace, I set the goal of working 4 days a week. My goal was to make more money and work less time, than the 70-hour typical work week that I did while at Nextspace.
Mm-hmm.
And I've found that I'm not able to do that as an entrepreneur. As running my own business, I basically work all the time. I kind of like pass out at night and then wake up at 6 in the morning and start going all over again, which is not, I will say, I'm not balancing well right now. And I'm finding that I have to reset my expectations of what I can produce on a regular basis. I also have to reset my expectations of what I can produce at home and for my kids. And I'm wondering, what have you found that you have to let go of that was important to you prior, from a business integrity standpoint, and from, I think of you as a really high producer. So what have you found that you just have to let go of, the kind of expectations that you have of yourself?
I think so. Running a co-working space is frenetic, and there are a million things that come at you all the time. And you're like, I'm going to get these things done today. Never happens. It never happens the way you think because the toilet backs up, or now we have the bar in the kitchen and like the kitchen floods, or there's so many things that you could never really anticipate that happen all the time. Or you have an inspector come that you need to drop everything and, tour around the space for an hour and remember what you're supposed to be telling that inspector, which is not necessarily what you're telling the other inspector. So letting go of actually needing to produce anything more than like one thing a day.
Mm-hmm.
So I've really started to limit my like, what do I need to get done today? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
today I need to get the liquid space listings up.
Mm-hmm.
And that might not even happen. That might be in process for a few days. But is everything moving forward? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel like Sawyer is having the most amazing experience? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm trying really hard not to put pressure on myself to like, oh, I didn't get done what I wanted to get done today, because I worked all day. I got things done. It just
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily what I was planning. Um, but it's all good stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think really being able to balance those expectations with ourselves as moms, and I'm guessing this is the same for dads as well. But really being able to forgive ourselves for not being that high producer, or actually for me, it's reframing the fact that I am still a high producer, but what I'm producing is varied. There's many channels of my production on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Um,
you're getting so much done. And I remember at one point when you were coming back from maternity leave, um, after having Dylan, you were saying, I want to be like 100% mom, and I want to be 100% team member at Nextspace, and not being 200% of a person is just like an expectation that you can't help but fail at all the time. And I think you've done a good job, and I've tried to do the same. I think about that a lot. I'm like, okay, I am 100% of a person, and that's how much of me I have to give to the world, to Cobo, to myself, and that's okay. That's a fact. I can't, like, if I am attempting to be more than that, that's just defying the laws of physics, and I will disappoint myself.
Yeah. So true and so important for us to remember. Um, so one of the things that I've always admired about you, Rebecca, is that you do an amazing job of balancing, well, not just balance, no, I don't mean balance, I mean integrate. You do an amazing job of integrating personal and professional uh, lives, work, people. You integrate all of it together. And I think this latest project of yours is really such a remarkable example of having done so. And I'm curious, how was it to build a business with your husband, with your brother, with a baby on the way? Do you guys get sick of each other? Talk to us about that. How is building a business with your family that's also becoming a family in your community? Is it all roses, or were there some really big challenges along the way?
When we first had the idea for Covo, Jason had the idea, and I jumped on board pretty quickly. But I was concerned because we have really different communication styles. Jason is much quicker and very like throws a lot of energy at projects. I find that stressful, and I don't work very well if I'm feeling rushed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was so excited about the idea and working with Jason, and I love him. He's my husband. He's my everything, and we've worked together. He was my CTO at Nextbase. He hired me as a consultant for his company to help with fixed Swift's operations. So we worked together, but not as partners.
Mm-hmm.
And I was nervous that I would just kind of get steamrolled.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like it was important to have a third person. So we would kind of have, part mediator, part just additional brain power, part tiebreaker. And Dan, my brother, who's one of my very best friends, and we just love each other and love spending time together still. He was looking to leave his law firm and get into the startup world and more of the get more involved with technology and more involved in the entrepreneurial scene in San Francisco. And so we started talking about, maybe he would be a good third. And he was excited. Jason was concerned that Dan would just always agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm his big sister.
Yeah, of course. He's been doing what you've told him to do his whole life, right?
If only that were true. And so we started talking, and it seemed like our skills, that it made sense from a skill set perspective, from a like we all love and respect each other perspective, but we weren't sure how decision making would go, if he would just agree with me. So we kind of trialed it a little bit, and we also worked through a book that is one of the ugliest books I've ever seen, but is one of the most valuable books I've ever used, which is I can find a link if you want to share.
Okay.
It's basically like 100 questions to answer before you go into business with someone.
Oh, awesome.
And I had brought it to the table when I joined the Nextbase team and asked Jeremy, I was like, I think we should go through this book, because you talk about, what do I think your motivation is
Mm-hmm.
for this company? Why do I think you're doing this? What do we all hope to get out of this? What are we planning on putting into it? As well as contingencies like what happens if Rebecca has a baby? What happens if, one of us decides we need to move away or leave? So you kind of talk through all of those things when you're still in kind of the honeymoon stage
Mm-hmm.
instead of later. And when we wrote it all down and we went, we answered all of the questions over lots of bottles of wine and lots of days of talking to really feel like, okay, we see this similarly. We want similar things. This is how we're going to make decisions. This is how, and then, so we decided like, okay, I think that this will work. And it has. And I would not recommend a family business to very many people.
Mm-hmm.
It is potentially fraught with a lot of additional red flags. But if it does work, there's nobody you trust more. I have no doubts or concerns that anyone is like conspiring or trying or like talking, shit talk about what's going on behind the scenes because we're all very upfront with each other.
Yeah.
We've
I
also
love I
developed,
love how process oriented you are, Rebecca. That is, and methodical in that. So how has this process that you have gone through with Jason and Dan, how has this affected or influenced the community that you're building? I know you did a lot of work around building your community ahead of time before you launched Covo. And so how has that affected or influenced, if at all, your community vision and culture?
I think it's really, I mean, like you said before, I've always kind of integrated work and family and play and friends. Um, and it's just kind of an extension of that. I've a lot of friends refer to me as their mom or their sister. I kind of tend to play that like confidant or advisor to a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people, and I do the same for members, and members become friends, and it's just kind of a beautiful cyclical kind of situation where we meet all these people and we just like adopt them all into our family and we do and like and it helps them feel like they're really a part of something and helps everybody just bring their best self to the table. It's been awesome. And
That's wonderful.
we still like to hang out together.
Okay, so tell us about Covo. There's just so much happening in this model that you've created. Um, and I know we covered a little bit about the design aspect in the beginning of our conversation, but tell us, what's the sort of short story on the different focuses you've blended together?
So we felt like community and collaboration and creating those catalyst moments when people bump into each other and connect. That's probably the most valuable feature of a co-working space, as well as having heads down spots and quiet areas you can get away when you need to do really focused independent work.
Mm-hmm.
But from that collision perspective, Jason was talking about how even though there's coffee available and it's potentially like very high quality coffee, people still leave to go to Starbucks to like kind of have that ritual, that experience of going to get a drink, whether it's a coffee or tea beverage or a glass of wine or beer at the end of the day, whether it's to connect for the first time or to celebrate a win or to drink away a loss. um, those liquids, and the ritual that surrounds them really brings people together. And what if that were all under one roof, and we could provide that kind of like Cheers bar experience where everyone knows your name, as well as amazing workspace.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the catalyst to add the coffee shop and cafe and bar, um, all under one roof.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing it ourselves. I think you asked that right before we started the call. It is all run by us and our staff. We decided we wanted to do that so that we wouldn't have confusing intentions, like conflicting intentions around, if we brought somebody in that's a coffee shop person, their primary goal is to sell coffee, but maybe we want to give coffee away for free to entice people into the co-working.
Mm-hmm.
So we just didn't want to kind of have those potential conflicts. We wanted everybody to be aligned in what we're trying to do as a whole company,
Mm-hmm.
as well as learn, what is it like to get into food and beverage?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to learn.
Wow. So I'm curious about your relationship with the restaurant aspect of it, because I love food, and I'm a foodie, but I've also never ever desired to open a restaurant, because I understand the complexity of the restaurant business and really the make or break aspect of the restaurant business as well. How how has that affected your launch and you're bringing the product to market? Has it slowed you down? Has it enhanced your brand offering?
The way that we've thought about food is we don't really believe there's any money in food, or in our projections and everything. We're like, if we can break even on food, but provide a limited menu of excellent food so that people can stay here if they want to, but utilize all of the restaurants around here if they so choose. That's how we think about food.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an enhancement. People love it. We have some great pastas. We have some great flatbreads, a grilled peach salad. So we have, it's very good food. We'll be introducing lunch and breakfast over the next month or two. Those are our kind of evening dishes. And we have a charcuterie plate and cheese plate. Our cook, Tim, made his own strawberry jam, which is unbelievable. I don't even like strawberry jam, but it's like a little bit spicy. So good. But that's kind of how we're thinking about it, because we were like, oh God, we don't want to open a restaurant. That sounds terrible. And like you said, fraught with complexity, and it's very hard to make money. So we think about it as, we did open a restaurant, and its purpose is to kind of keep everything else working. Because it sucks when you go to a bar and there's just no food. Then you have to leave. So we want people to be able to stay here if they want to. So it was important from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. I can just see you putting nap pods or sleeping pods on the roof, and then people will never have to leave.
I really believe in co-living.
Yeah, me too.
And a future Cobo.
Yeah, that will be very exciting. So we only have time for one more question. I would love to learn a little bit about your public co-working. Your space is beautiful, and I love the layout of that space right in the beginning that's adjacent to the coffee shop and the restaurant. And yet public co-working can be a pretty complex aspect of running a co-working space, basically, because how do you know who's there and when they're there and how long they stay? So how did you set that up, and what's the tech you use to manage that aspect of the business?
So we wanted to be open to the public. We have 3 levels when you come into Cobo. At the front, where it's the coffee shop or reception, it's completely free and completely open to the public. Then we have an app called Cobo Pass, which we created. It's a tablet-based app that allows you into the hourly co-working section. And you just swipe your credit card when you come in, you swipe on your way out, and it tracks how much time you were there and charges you accordingly.
Wow.
So we wanted it to be easy, and we wanted people to be able to use hourly space, but no tech existed to actually facilitate that.
Mm-hmm.
So we created it. It's working well. We're ironing out a couple of bugs. But we're actually going to be selling it. We're going to, for other co-working spaces or other places that want to have an hourly solution.
Great.
We're really excited about it. We think it could help a lot of spaces.
Yeah. And how did you come up with this idea of free co-working in the front? Did you get that idea from other spaces, or is that something that you noticed, well, we have this restaurant and people are going to be coming in and they won't be able to be, they won't be members. How do we handle that?
We saw a couple of spaces. I mean, everybody likes working in coffee shops, but they're very limited. Everyone likes it and is very frustrated with the experience at the same time. So we wanted to, again, create an environment where you have the benefits of working at a coffee shop, but don't have the negatives. So we have, in the free part, there are no outlets. So you can take a meeting, but it is limited in what you get. But if that's what you need, then that's perfect. If you need more, if you need phone rooms, if you need to charge your devices, if you need a lactation room, if you need, kind of the next level of what we provide, it's $3 an hour, so it's very reasonable. And people have been thrilled. They're like, oh, this is great. I feel like, I wish this was my living room.
Wow, that's awesome.
And we kind of saw it as a funnel as well to get people into this space in a very low commitment, simple, easy to explain and understand kind of way. And then if they want 24/7 access and access to, the shower room and the bike room and the nap room and have their own dedicated space or have their own office, that, it'll be easier for people to know that those offerings are available if we've gotten them in on the hourly level.
Awesome. Well, Rebecca, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Covo or just want to chat with you as a pioneer in the co-working movement?
Yeah, email is best. I'm Rebecca@hellocovo.com. And all the information's on our website as well. I think we have a chat with Bex at hellocovo.com also. So yeah, just reach out. I am obsessed with this stuff. I love talking.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Rebecca. It was a pleasure getting to chat here with you today.
Thanks for having me, Iris. This was great.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of Co-working with Iris. Next week, I'll be speaking with Hector Colonas of Included.co. Hector has a great story, a great co-working story, and has recently transformed his business into one which can offer group buying power to co-working spaces, as well as really wonderful service offerings that can be offered to members at a discount and can bring in an additional revenue stream for co-working spaces. I met Hector a couple weeks ago online, and I'm really intrigued with what he's offering to the co-working world and the world of shared workspaces. So join us next week at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Friday for my conversation with Hector about what he's offering. Thanks so much. Talk soon.